We are now in part two of Sandel's discussion of roles, and here we're going to cover the social contract approach to treating rational beings as ends in themselves. We're also going to examine the problem of fairness in the social contract approach and the solution to the problem of fairness. The solutions are concepts of veil of ignorance, original position, the basic liberties principle, and the difference principle. Rawls takes it that we are fundamentally self-interested beings and act accordingly. For this reason, he also takes it that normally we would act in this self-centered and biased fashion in collective deliberation with others about the laws and institutions in our society. And so fairness would not be achieved that way. It would just be a power struggle in which some would have the upper hand over others. Those with more knowledge or those with more income, those with more talents, and so on. A fair social contract resulting in just laws and institutions in our society would have to be from a position of not knowing what our particular interests and talents happen to be. What we would choose from that original position and under the veil of ignorance about who we are for the structure of laws and institutions in the society would then be fair. So, in our minds, so to speak, we're supposed to go into this original position where none of us know what kinds of natural talents we have, what kinds of positions we hold in society. And so none of us are supposed to know what actual interests we have. And from that position, we can think in an unbiased fashion. This is Rawls' point. So what we would choose from that position, original position of not knowing what kinds of talents and handicaps we would be born with, and not knowing what the desires of other people would be that would award particular talents and skills on the free market. What would we choose from that position? We would not choose utilitarianism. We may be born into a situation where we are a minority that must do less well in order to raise benefits for the majority. That would be just according to the utilitarian morals. We would not choose libertarianism. We may be born into a situation where we have the abilities and develop the skills that are not favored by what happens to be in demand on the market. We would choose the following two structures or principles according to which laws and institutions would be arranged. If we don't know what our interests are, if we don't know what our talents are, and so on. We would choose the basic liberties principle, and that is maximum basic liberties for each person that are compatible with the same liberties for everyone. Basic political liberties, such as free speech, right to property, voting, equality under the law, and so on, right? If we don't know what kind of talents we have, where we are born into in the social hierarchy of things, we would want to be sure that every person has these basic liberties. More than that, we would also subscribe to the difference principle. And the difference principle states the only economic inequalities and hierarchies in terms of wealth or power in the offices that we will permit in the society are those that are to the advantage of the worst off. In other words, if we don't know if we're going to be the best off or the worst off in the society, we would want a society that really takes care of its worst off. And the argument here is that that would happen according to the difference principle. where economic inequalities and hierarchies are arranged so that the worst off are best off as a result of these inequalities. The difference principle is what interests us here. The basic idea here is that it is just for there to be wealthy folks, such as Jeff Bezos, because Amazon is of a tremendous benefit to the employees and consumers, especially those who are worst off in terms of talents, skills, and wealth, and that the same benefits cannot be achieved for the worst off by any alternative method. The same benefits would not be possible even if we simply had equal distribution of wealth, communist style. There probably simply would not be anything offering services like Amazon under absolute equality communism. Under this absolute equality, innovation may not be sufficiently encouraged, bureaucracies may not be sufficiently efficient, and so on. Thus, from the original position, and under the veil of ignorance, we would not choose to live in the society of equal distribution of wealth either. The claim is that the worst off are most better off in an egalitarian liberal Rawlsian society, as the difference in earnings motivates the persons to work hard and produce services and products from which everyone benefits. That motivation would presumably be absent under communist style equal distribution of wealth. If I am born with bad luck to not have skills valued on the market, I would be best off in a libertarian, liberal, egalitarian society. And if I'm born with good luck of becoming Jeff Bezos, I would still be very well off in a liberal, egalitarian society. Whatever cuts to my unlimited keeping of all the wealth I would experience as Jeff Bezos would be well worth insuring myself from the risk of doing poorly if I happened to be born with bad luck instead. Rawls argues that rational self-interest would lead us all to choose the difference principle. And in that sense, the difference principle respects the freedom of every person as an end in itself in a Kantian fashion, in that we would rationally choose this Rawlsian difference principle of that we're going to have inequalities in our society, but only those that make the worst off the best off.